Welcome back to Brussels and our semifinal series between SKT and Origen. As we speak, SKT is setting up for Game 3, and it's do or die for Origen. First thing we have to address, of course, is the substitution of Faker back into the mid lane. As Origen has been unable to beat EasyHoon yet, they're now being thrown yet another curveball in their fight to stay alive in the series.
Yeah, so I actually feel like Faker's more of a fastball in this instance. I'm going to make a baseball analogy. EasyHoon is the guy who throws a bunch of junk, barely throws over 90 miles an hour, curveballs, change-ups, sinkers, and now Faker's going to come in and throw 101 miles per hour. The adjustment instantly for Peke in that lane could prove incredibly difficult, and there's a chance that this completely closes the series.
So I'm going to make a Princess Bride reference.
Oh, dear Lord.
So you know that scene in The Princess Bride where Inigo Montoya and the Dread Pirates Robert are fencing, and they're both fencing left-handed, and then he switches over and says, "I'm not left-handed," and he switches to his right hand. Well, unfortunately for Origen, they actually are left-handed, so now it's even more imbalanced, and it goes the other way, and the Dread Pirate Roberts gets stabbed and dies.
Oh.
I just feel really scared for Peke.
A pleasant thought, Monty.
But this is Origen on purple side, and they're going to blind pick mid into Faker. This is why I liked Faker in this matchup, is because now Peke is playing all these immobile mids, all these scaling mids, and he's blind picking them into Faker. So they have to either change their pick and ban to where Peke's last pick, or I'm terrified.
Yeah, so you think that there's a distinct possibility they will change their pick ban strategy so that Peke gets that final shot?
Well, what Origen's done is they didn't really adapt to the top lane meta that's been coming out. So I doubt that they'll be fast enough to adapt to this, where they need to be last pick in their mid lane. So no, I don't think they will change pick and ban, but I think that would be preferable for
Yeah, I do have to point out, though, how close the first two games were up until the dive that Origen failed in the top lane. The first game was Origen's pace. They had a chance to win. Even 20 minutes into last game, they had a chance to win. They need to keep their mindset right. They cannot get tilted by the appearance of Faker, and they need to realize that they came to play.
True, but you just mentioned that Faker's going to come in as 101 mile per hour fastball. So how does that change the dynamic of the early game? Because they've been allotted the time to stay even with SKT playing a more farm-centric game. With Faker in the mix, that might not be the case.
It probably won't be, in fact, especially because Faker, he has such a staggering champion pool that... Let me just ask probably a question. You had to prepare for SKT in groups. How did you prepare against Faker?
Well, it was Ryu, so I know he would win, so it didn't matter. I pretty much said, Ryu, pick what you want to beat Faker with, and that's how it went. But if I was in those shoes, I'd be terrified, because I'm like, yeah, I get to maybe play against Olaf mid, or Aurelia mid, or Kinch mid. I can play against anything. This is a really, really crappy situation to be in when you don't get to counterpick your mid.
Well, I mean, Origen is on the red side, so they have the opportunity to counterpick the mid.
But they haven't.
They haven't. That's the thing. Here's the thing they might change if they're thinking, if they get a power pick for Soaz in the top lane, if he goes early Fiora or Darius, then they can actually save that last draft choice. And I don't even think they're going to get much value out of the counter pick, looking at his champion pool, because it's a Nivea or Orianna. But if they last pick mid, do I get the box you're standing on? For segment?
No, you don't get any of that.
So your argument, though, is that since they haven't been playing well in the top lane meta so far, right, they wouldn't necessarily take a power pick for Soaz so early?
Well, they did get the Fiora into Renekton, which I think is great to pressure the Renekton early, because eventually Fiora is going to be better than Renekton. They didn't do any of that. So why would they just start swapping that up and do that now? I don't think they know how to play around the top lane correctly. So I think what Origen needs to be doing is get the early game over. I think their early game standard is pretty poor. Amazing hasn't been getting lucrative ganks off. They're pretty wonky, nothing happens. So I think they need to do fast push, get turrets down quickly, and leave Soaz the Turgle, leave him in the lane that's freezing towards them, and stop giving everything to Niels, because they're going to play around Niels just naturally. They don't need to force it through 2v1s.
You're of the opinion that the team should abandon the strategy that has carried them mostly to this point?
Yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of it yet.
It's different. I want to see them, and this is obviously they can do whatever they want to do. I want to see them kind of cut their losses as much as they can with Soaz. Put him on a champion he is comfortable with. I hope they force SKT into a choice. Hope to get Lulu through if they can give them Gangplank or Mordekaiser. Just leave them up there and then play around their bottom lane. Even go harder into the strategy that almost worked in games 1 and 2.
Yeah, that would be my curiosity. If you saw something like a Malphite go into the top lane, Orion in the mid, or the Lulu, as you mentioned, which could be left up, and funnel all of their resources into Niels and see how that manifests either on Tristana or Kalista.
The only thing is, Malphite would be their only option. So say that is their plan, is they give this Malphite something that you could just leave up there as a rock. That means you have to abuse the level 6 TP bot, force that 3v3, because Malphite's going to win every 3v3 bot. And then it means if you win this game, game 4, they're not going to let you have Malphite anymore, because they know your strategy. So I don't think this is something that they can actually reuse without it just being banned out instantly.
I think the final thing to kind of hit is what they can do regardless, outside of picks, right, in terms of their actual play and their shot calling, because we have seen Origen a couple times in this tournament make fantastic Baron calls, which put them ahead in games. They did that in game 1, they didn't close it out. But where can they look to make really decisive calls that might throw SKT off of their traditional and very methodical play style?
I think it's hard to say that until we see the picks and ban phase, because depending on what Faker plays, they could play very differently. If he's playing a low wave clear champion, that answer may be that question that, okay, we can start really putting emphasis on that mid lane, push, 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 try and play for towers with the Tristana, with the fast push like we saw them doing in the first game of the series. So I think it's hard to say that until we know exactly what they're playing.
Right. We are giving Faker a little bit more time to get ready on stage, as he's had to make the substitution. Another curiosity or thought would be, as you mentioned again, leaving some of those larger power picks open. If Tahm Kench, Mordekaiser, GP, Lulu, all of a sudden we see a team decide in their possible final game here to leave everything up and really play the game of trading the power picks, how does that work out?
The unfortunate thing is SKT can block it, as they did in game 1 when Origen decided to ban out junglers on one side. But if it didn't, I would like to think you first pick Gangplank, because he is the unanimous #1 pick amongst most professional teams. And then you trade that for something like Mordekaiser and X. Hopefully that's Tahm Kench or Lulu. If Origen wants to win, it has to be.
All right, well, that's about all of the possibilities that could happen in Champions Life. Let's send it over to Freak, Kobe, and Crepo in the caster booth for the play-by-play.